So that makes you the age requirements. Now introduce yourself, please. Tell me your name and where you immigrated from and where you reside now.
My name is Marcella Ramsey. I immigrated from Nicaragua, Central America, and I live in San Bruno, California.
Now give us some history of Nicaragua and describe it to us.
Nicaragua, it's in Central America.
Okay.
It's the biggest country in Central America. It's borderline with Honduras and Costa Rica. Has a lot of natural resources. Nicaragua grows cotton, cultivates coffee beans, and recently it's growing in tourism.
Any specific area in Nicaragua that's really kind of like exploded with tourism and all that?
Yeah, San Juan del Sur, it's border with Costa Rica, and it's a little town borderline with Costa Rica, and it's really exploded with tourism. It's known for surfing, for its beaches. And I visited Nicaragua for the first time about 4 years ago. I brought my son along, who was 13 years old, and everything that I remember from Nicaragua was just very different. It wasn't what I had remembered. Like, the houses looked a lot smaller than what I remember. So.
Okay, cool. So if you could just give me a tour of kind of, if you remember your day in Nicaragua, specifically, like, if you get down to, like, the real details, like, as a kid, like, when you wake up till, like, pretty much when you go to sleep and get ready for the next day. So if you get into that.
I remember, I don't remember much, but I do remember that we attended school. We got up early in the morning. We had breakfast. I'm the second from 4 kids. So
okay.
I have a brother that's a year and a half older than me. Then it's myself, my sister Lucy, then my sister Karina. And we would all have breakfast together at the table. Then my mom would get us ready for school. She'd take us to school, and my dad went off to work. My mom was a stay-at-home mother. We would go to school, come home, do homework, and then play outside. We played outside with the kids, like in front of our house. I remember that. That was a lot of fun. There was no, of course, video games, or we didn't even watch TV. We had a TV, but we didn't watch TV. We played outside like all day after we did our homework. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So what's one thing that you really like? One thing that really resonates with you about your time in Nicaragua as like a child, like something that you can really resonate with, that you can really like kind of relate to.
I remember I like the beach a lot. I like going to the beach, and I remember with my dad every weekend we would go to the beach.
Okay. Could you describe the beaches a little bit, kind of relatively to the ones up here?
The beaches were warm. The water was really warm.
Were you on the Atlantic or the Pacific coast?
Pacific coast.
And they were warm on the Pacific coast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's something you
like
don't
that's
see here.
One big difference. Yeah.
What motivated you and your family to leave from your home country to come to the United States? If you could get into detail on that.
Well, we didn't have much of a choice. It wasn't like we were motivated. There was a war. There was a civil war.
Okay.
And I remember one day, I get a little emotional, I'm sorry. We were in school, and then our parents just came to pick up all the kids, and they said there was a war. And we had to go home. So we just went home, and I remember hiding in the bathroom. And we would hear a lot of gunshots.
Right.
Like, there were a lot of gunshots. And there was like a lot of mattresses like around the bathroom where we were hiding. And that went on, it seemed like for a long time. I I don't know, like months or so.
Oh, you went through that for months.
Yeah, for months.
You guys tried to stay, see if it would.
Well, no, I mean it wasn't like we tried to stay. We just, I don't know exactly. Like
Okay,
we were just there. Like I don't know what the adults thought. Like if the war was gonna stop or what. I don't know. I didn't really understand. I just know that we were there for
a while, extended period of time.
Yeah, for a while.
Okay.
And then like we never went back to school.
Really?
And then after that we never went back to school for like months. And I remember like a plane going by and like shooting, I guess releasing ammunition.
Right.
And then all of a sudden my dad left first with my brother, and we stayed there for like, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, a period of time.
Yeah.
And then one day my mom said, we're leaving the United States.
Wow. Just so abruptly like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So, okay. All that happens. Now, what did you know about the United States before you came here?
Nothing at all.
Okay. Awesome. Could you just tell me anything?
Really, I didn't know anything.
You hadn't heard anything, maybe like I knew.
Other than my aunt lived in the United States, like that's what I knew.
Okay, you didn't hear anything about like World War II or just any kind of like trickle down history.
They talked about President Reagan.
Okay, yeah, right.
President Reagan and Jimmy Carter.
Okay.
I remember those names. I remember those names. But really, and I remember that my dad always studied English. Like he knew English before he came here, because he always studied English. I remember that. But I didn't really know much about the history, or I didn't really know anything.
You didn't hear anything about like Vietnam or anything?
Mm-mm.
None of that? Okay.
No.
Just wondering. Alright, so what was your first job when you came to the United States? First job.
My first job, I mean, I was a kid. I went to school.
Right.
I went directly to school, and it was very hard because they didn't have bilingual education like they do now, or ESL, I think they call
ESOL,
it.
right. English second
as a
language.
Second language, they didn't have that.
Oh, wow.
So we were just like thrown in school, and we didn't know the language. And most of the kids didn't speak Spanish. Or if they did, it wasn't like very accepted. Like they pretended like they didn't speak the language.
Oh, like other fellow Latin.
Yeah, folk. Latin. Yeah, that was like looked down upon. Like if you spoke Spanish. And it turns out now that everybody speaks Spanish. Like even they spoke Spanish. It wasn't perfect, but they knew, So anyway, in a way that was good, because we like learned English like in 3 months. Like as much as we could. Where I think if we would have had that ESL, it would have been, I don't know, an interruption. So we had no choice. We were immersed in the language.
Sometimes it's good to be taught that way. Just be thrown into things.
I don't know. It was very hard.
Right.
I don't know what's best or not best, but it was, we had no choice.
Yeah. Now, being a native Spanish speaker, how did it feel when people kind of looked down upon speaking like your language in the United States?
Well, I didn't know. I didn't understand at the time, but it just seemed like, I mean, it was just weird that these people were Latin and they didn't speak the language. Or they pretended that they didn't speak the language. So, it was weird. But to us personally, to myself and my siblings, it was really hard. It was really hard because the kids would make fun of us too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So let's fast forward to high school. Take me through an average day of high school for you.
Oh, high school was a lot of fun.
Right.
Like, I mean, by then we were like totally immersed in the, I guess the culture, it was high school. And I think my parents too did very well by not letting us watch Spanish television. Like we
Oh,
weren't allowed to watch Spanish television in the house because they wanted us to really learn English. And so high school was just natural, like, for any kid. Like,
right. Did
just
you
went
work
through.
work during
Yeah.
going to high school? Went to high school full time?
I did.
All
Actually,
that.
my first job was when I was 13 years old. I was a babysitter.
Okay.
And I would take like 2 buses from where I lived to go babysit like 4 kids. And that was
Nice.
like really hard.
Okay. So maybe kind of as like a reflection question, speak on possible like segregation at school as a child. So I know you talked about kind of like the language barrier that was like prevalent, but did you experience anything like?
Actually, segregation, we weren't, yeah, in a way, I guess you can say we were segregated because we were, so the kids that didn't speak English would sit at a different table with
Okay.
a fellow like Latin peer that he was supposed to be like our mentor, but he didn't really speak Spanish either. And then so he would try to help us as much as possible, like translate, but he didn't really speak Spanish.
And this was in high school?
No, this was in the early years.
Oh, okay.
By high school we totally knew English. That's like irrelevant.
Right. So this was something that was put on by the school as a program, or how did you?
It wasn't like a program. It was something that was like free falling. I think the teachers didn't know what to do.
I see.
How to address the kids that didn't speak the language.
Oh, wow.
So they just said, okay, well, you're gonna go in a group with this,
That-
fellow Latin person,
Okay.
student that he speaks Spanish, but they didn't really speak Spanish.
Yeah. Well, it's. You think maybe in that time period, not that time period specifically, but I think that was something that schools had issues dealing with. Just the wave of
obviously.
migration. And,
Well, like I said, in a way, it was good because we just like were totally immersed
Right.
in the language, and like we had, for our own good, we had our a big interest in learning the language. So
Okay. Maybe expanding more on like the segregation and discrimination. Did you or anyone you know experience any type of discrimination as an immigrant to the country? Maybe not as far as like speaking the language, but like maybe like an accent or kind of the way they looked, just because not everybody's the idealistic like Anglo-Saxon.
no,
Looking. No. Okay.
not at all.
Yeah. Okay.
Not at all. Mm-mm. I mean, just when we first came here, and the kids, of course, they're
Right,
cruel.
right.
Kids are cruel, but no, never.
Okay. Now, are you happy to come to this country and pay taxes for certain things that you may not otherwise have in your home country, right? So just think about that.
Happy to pay taxes? Well, that's kind of a loaded question.
Yeah.
I'm not happy to pay taxes, but I see that they're necessary sometimes for some things. Yeah.
Right. And if you could just touch briefly on like what your political affiliation is, possibly.
Oh no, I feel uncomfortable.
Okay, that's fine. Now, over the years, do you feel like you have lost connection with like your Latino heritage and?
Yeah, I did. I did until I went back to my country.
Which was recently.
Then like 4 years ago. But I wasn't really like. I mean, my mom didn't cook at home like the Nicaraguan food. We didn't listen to music. I didn't have a lot of friends until I reunited with 2 of my best friends from Nicaragua when we were little. And then that's when I started learning more about my culture. Yeah,
Right.
And that was in the recent years. Yeah.
And since you came to the country, how many times have you been back to Nicaragua? Just to clear that up.
Twice.
Twice, okay. Do you think that's common for people of your like your kind of story to not go back as often? Or, I mean, what do you think? Do you think it's just varied across the board?
I knew of a friend,
Yeah.
like one of the few friends that I had, that her family went back like all the time. Actually, I think we were in the minority, like my family.
Okay.
No one other than myself has gone back. Like my
Oh.
siblings have never been there. Yeah. Or nor my mom. My dad did go back one time, but I think we were on the minority because people usually do go back, I hear. I think we never had an interest because we always thought about the war.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So looking back on your experience, do you wish you would have stayed in Nicaragua? Or
No.
Okay. Okay, so as the last question, or maybe just as a final wrap-up statement, describe your experience coming to this country in one sentence or less. Experience coming to this country and just overall, just feeling of, being an immigrant, and growing up in the United States. How would you describe it?
Strange.
Right.
Like you lived in two different worlds.
Totally. Would you do it again?
It wasn't my choice.
All right. That's it.